Hi folks, so today we will talk about the decentralized web nodes. It's a recently new idea and I see that we have a lot of confusion and so on. So this concept was brought by the TBD guys and they are the main group that actually working on the implementation of it, and I see that a lot of folks that was working on the Site 3 protocol working there too. So it have some roots. So what the DVN is about. So first of all, it's decentralized for sure, but it's decentralized application of personal storage. So it's about the data, and it's a decentralized message relay. So, and this message relay, it's quite confusing because I see that a lot of people try to compare the DITCOM with the DVNs, and this comparison is not going well because, yeah, decentralized web nodes have the messages carry the object and build the backbone of the protocol, but it's not about the messages at all. So for sure, for me it was the surprise that the DVN guys haven't built on top of the DITCOM, but they explained me that they see the messages more as the persistent handles and the continuation of the records. So this have nothing with the things that DITCOM do, but they have the similarities. For the similarities between DITCOM and distributed web nodes, that to communicate you need to have the service endpoint in your DID document. It's heavily based on the DIDs, and it's relay on the DID authorization. So the distributed web node have the DID authorization layer that allows you to build a secure communication as same as the DITCOM have the secure communication layers. In this case, DITCOM and distributed web nodes, they decentralized web nodes, they have something in common, but that's it. So the main idea of the DVNs that you have persistent layer, you could have multiple nodes, one node could represent one user, one node could represent one application, or the same user could have the multiple DIDs and multiple DVNs because you want to separate the concerns. So you could have the multiple nodes that synchronize with each other, that subscribe to each other, that share some data. So it's a quite flexible network of agents that keep your data. But the main thing that you should understand that it's not about the messages, it's about records, and it's about the collection. So the main object inside the DVN is a collection. It's a collection of records, and you have an interface that actually focus on the records. And the records, they have this self-descriptive form. So you specify for a record the schema that record have, and it's give you the possibility to be flexible, and build different let's say objects with the different semantics, with the different schema and context. So, and it's flexible enough to build the let's say the storage of the structured data. So, and collections are super simple, so you have the possibility to write objects, to read and modify them, so it's nothing complex. But the next step and the next object inside the decentralized web nodes is the permissions, and it's a big game changer because with the permissions you could give some other people possibility to interact with your data, to define who could have the access to this data and what they could do. And it's quite simple, but it's powerful. So the same thing was for example, lead protocol. Lead protocol tried to build the permission layer on top of the decentralized data, but the DVN have the permissions, so you could grant permission, revoke permissions, and your permissions is the messages. Your permissions actually is the yet another type of record, so that they persistent, and you have some particular message that will configure the permissions and so on. And the next interesting thing that the next possibility that you have in a nodes, it's a hooks. Hooks actually it's the cool part, because hook allow you to create the subscription mechanism to your DVM. So you could create the hooks that will notify some people that you have the new data, or data was changed, and they could grab the updates from you. So it's build this pushing models, and it's quite an interesting feature how you actually could connect the different nodes and create the data flow between these nodes. Most complex things that it's a bit confusing but still powerful is the protocols, and the protocols you could see it as a mix of permissions that you already have and some kind of rule engine. So you described that you have some entity like the app or some other things. You have some players inside this entity, and you define the protocols. What kind of messages you could receive from this app, who could reply to these messages, how the replay will look like. If this guy, for example, creates some particular type of message, could he create some other types, or what the expected answer from some particular type of messages, and so on. So the protocols actually turn the decentralized web nodes to actually some kind of application layer, so that you have the powerful rule engine that somehow create the protocol and communication layers for the applications. So just to repeat, you have the collections that manage the data and define the data shape. You have permissions that give the access to the data. You have the hooks that create the push models and notification system when the data gets changed or something happens. And you have the protocols that build, let's say, the contracts and agreements, how the different applications and entities could communicate and create some data on your node and regulate the communication. So that's it. And it's quite flexible, it's quite powerful, and you could separate the concerns and have the multiple nodes that cover the multiple purposes. You could have the application that work with the couple of nodes and so on. So the main idea that you have the DIT-outs and DIT-to-DIT communication on top. After that, you have the layer that define the object, define the structure, know how to serialize the things, and the last piece is IPLD compatible multi-format things that allow you to build effectively different types of the storages. So, and right now we have the SDK written on the TypeScript that allow us to build the nodes, and it's transport agnostic, so you could build any kind of transport on top. You could use the HTTP, you could use the WebSockets, you could use any kind of transport layer. So we have the implementation that use this SDK on top of the HTTP, so you could host your node as a HTTP service. Right now it's possible. It's quite a matured implementation. This implementation have the concept of the events, but it's the separate topic. But you know, so it's on the pre-draft state. The specification changing, but I guess that it will take quite big fraction of the workload and the things, because people needs to have a persistent layer, and it will take some fraction of the things that currently covered by the blockchains and smart contracts. So you could see your DVN as some kind of smart contract if you really want. And actually, you could even create the chain of relays that you have some nodes that are on the devices, you have some nodes that are on your personal machine, you have the node that's sitting in the cloud, and you have a node that may be closer to your users. You could connect all these nodes in a network, you could set up the sharing and synchronization via the hooks, and make sure that this data in sync. So you could build a lot of interesting architectures. You could find a lot of inspiration from the agents. You could find a lot of interesting patterns if you will take a look to the actor models and how to build the actor-driven systems. I guess that we could learn from the previous architectures and map it to the new tools. So it's not the self-sovereign identity, but the persistent layer and data management. It's a crucial part of the sovereign independent person. So I guess that it will fit well to the ecosystem, but do not mix up. DVNs, it's not about the messages, it's more about the data. So that was my main message to you. Subscribe to my channel, ask the question. I will try to make the Medium post with this video and some more explanations and the reference to the different specs, to the different articles, and try to combine all the useful information that I used to make this video. Also, please follow my Medium channel, and yeah, see you next time. Choose.